Okay, so you've read through, you probably understood the description of the Madoff project, but you might be asking yourself, okay, so what separates a good project from a mediocre or a bad project? And there's a couple things that we saw, we being the team that I was on when I did this project, uh, that I got to see when we did the presentations that kind of separated um, good things from bad. So the first thing um, is I'm going to break this into two parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the written report, and then I'm going to talk about the presentation itself, because the written report is worth 20% of your final grade, but the presentation, at least when we did it, but the presentation is worth 10%. So you could have a kick-ass analysis, a kick-ass report, but you're going to need to take care of both. So um, to start off with, so the project, I've minimized it here just so you guys kind of have a bigger overview, and also so you guys don't see stuff that I've written and feel like that's the right answer, because it's not. There's not necessarily a right answer for a lot of this. Um, so the first thing to notice is the graphics. You want to put in graphics to break stuff up, to explain what you're talking about, um, to make it more visually appealing, etc., etc. Get familiar with Excel and its graph tools, and not just the graph tools, but the how to make graphs actually look good. So if you're coming here um, and you're talking about charts and things like that, you'll want to look at like the chart layouts or the chart styles, things like that. So that way it's not just your traditional black and white, that there's different colors in there, things like that. Um, make a lot of your charts, but don't be afraid to look stuff up online. If there's stuff, I mean, this Ponzi scheme has been analyzed ad nauseum. So if there's stuff online that you want to look up, or the tables and things like that, by all means, go online to see what you can find that will help substantiate your report and make it look that much more professional. Um, Number two, transitions are key. So it's pretty small, but like we have it broken up: executive summary, then the introduction, then an analysis of Madoff's returns. That's part three. Then part four is the split strike conversion as an investment strategy. And then number five is the ideal split strike combination. So then number six, conclusion. So those are kind of, if I had to summarize it as kind of the general topics to hit, it would be those four, plus one for the introduction, one for the conclusion. You're going to want to talk about the background of uh, the Madoff returns and the Madoff scheme itself, because that's part of the project. But you're going to want to spend a lot of time talking about the split strike conversion as an investment strategy, and the ideal split strike combination, because that's where you're really going to separate yourself. That's where you're really going to be able to show that you know what you're talking about, and where your analytical skills and knowledge of the course are going to come into play. So don't spend a whole lot of time talking about the analysis of the returns, because they're the same for everyone. Everyone's going to look at that and is able to give basically the same analysis. And that goes for when you do your presentation, when you go in front of the class too. You don't have to show 10 different ways for why the returns are bogus. Talk about why the returns are bogus, substantiate your point, and then move on. Don't get hung up on there. Spend a lot more time talking about, you know, what split strike combination you use, and more importantly, why you used it. You should have a reason for every number that you give on here. You should have an idea of where it comes from and why it fits into your argument. Either your argument for why Madoff's scheme was a bust, why the split strike version is an important strategy, or why the split strike strategy that you're recommending is the one that you're recommending. There shouldn't be any point in which you can't answer it. The reason for that being that when it comes time to do your presentation, if you start throwing out bogus numbers, Patel's going to call you on it. and it happened to multiple people, multiple groups last year, and there was just this awkward period of like 20, 30 seconds of silence where no one could see, no one could explain why the numbers came from where they came from, and you don't want that when you're dealing with something that's worth 10% of your final grade. So um, keep that in mind. Additionally, again, I talked about this a little bit in the general overview, but you're working for CalPERS. You're yes, this is it's important to talk about why Madoff is a fraud and things like that, and that's not really relevant to CalPERS as much. But the part that is relevant is this idea of what's the ideal split strike strategy. You should have part of your explanation be understanding what your clients' needs are and what their investment objectives are, and tailoring what performance measures you use to evaluate each of your strategies. Um, you should take what CalPERS is wanting into account. So it's going to change. Do you want something that's high risk, high return? Do you want something that's low risk, low return? Do you want something that's somewhere in the middle? Do you want something, by some other measure? That's something you're going to have to think about, and that's going to take a lot more understanding than just crunching numbers and showing that, well, when we reverse engineer the split strike strategy of 5%, it doesn't work. That kind of stuff is fairly straightforward. um, Next thing is write well. um, like really write well. Take it to the tutoring or take it to the writing center in the library if you need to. Have a friend grade it, buy him a beer or something. I don't know, but there were a lot of reports that weren't well written, and the grade suffered. Um, there's definitely something to be said for writing writing concise, active verb, um, analytical, in-depth pieces here, and you don't have that much to work with, and you don't want there to be that much to work with. You want a couple pages, some graphics, get in, get out, make your point, and don't bog the writing down with um, superfluous writing. Um, Again, just to stress again, own up to every number. Don't don't. It's not necessarily making stuff up, but make sure you can justify where the number comes from and why it fits into your argument. Um, don't when you're doing the presentation. This is moving a little bit more to the presentation now. Obviously, dress up, um, be prepared, things like that. Use a Prezi. Um, don't explain the entire report. So what a lot of groups did last year that kind of screwed them up was when it came time to do their oral presentation, they were explaining every little detail, um, and that's not the point of that. The point of the presentation is to hit your main points, and get in and get out, um, not to spend a bunch of time talking about every single analysis that you did. You want to highlight the main ones, get in, get out. So comparison results, that's the kind of thing that's important. There were groups that did there were groups that did you know 25, 30 slides, and it just got a little too onerous. So realize that you should be very complete and thorough in your written report, but when it comes time to do the presentation, really just hit the main points, keep it interesting, keep it, you know, make sure that you're highlighting what's important and what's not, rather than including every little thing. Um, so that's what I got. Hopefully that helps. Um, there's other little things too, but those are kind of the main ones that you'll see will help separate a mediocre report from a good one. And you could have really great analysis and have a really great idea, but um, if it's not translated well into your written report and then into your presentation, all that's for naught. So definitely spend time on the written report. Have someone whose job it is to compile everything, to edit it, to make sure everything flows, to make sure everything's in its right spot. You don't want to be talking about the ideal split strike strategy before you're talking about the split strike conversion as a strategy to begin with, things like that. So you want to make it flow. Um, so good luck, and if there's any questions, obviously you can talk to Patel.